The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal ocean. Thousands of seats rose in perfect circles, each one filled with creatures that looked like they came from nightmares or dreams. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others glowed with soft light from within their crystal bodies. A few floated in tanks of colored gas. Elena Vasquez sat in the human section and tried not to show how angry she felt. The human delegation had only 3 seats in this massive space. 3 seats for all of humanity, while the ancient Zarathi Empire had 50 golden thrones arranged in perfect rows. She looked at her 2 companions. General Chen sat straight like a soldier, his dark eyes watching everything. Dr. Okonkwo typed notes on her datapad, her fingers moving fast as she recorded each insult thrown at humanity today. The council speaker stood at the center of the hall. Threndal looked like a walking diamond, all sharp edges and rainbow light. His voice echoed from speakers built into the walls. "The proposal before us today is simple," Threndal said. His words came out slow and careful, like he was talking to children. "The human species has shown dangerous behavior patterns. They expand too quickly. They fight too often. They refuse to follow proper galactic customs." Elena felt her hands turn into fists. Around the hall, alien heads nodded in agreement. The collective mind's 37 representatives all moved at the same time like puppets on strings. The Trade Federation's bug-like delegates clicked their approval. "Therefore," Threndal continued, "we propose the Aggressive Species Control Protocol. All humans must undergo genetic changes to remove their violent tendencies. This is for the good of galactic peace." The hall erupted in clicking, buzzing, and warbling sounds. Elena knew enough alien languages to understand the meaning. They were applauding. She stood up slowly. The noise died down as thousands of strange eyes turned toward her. Elena had given speeches to world leaders and space admirals, but she had never felt pressure like this. "Speaker Threndal," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's sound system. "The United Earth Federation has heard your proposal." "Good," Threndal replied. "Will humanity accept these necessary changes for the benefit of all?" Elena looked around the hall one more time. She saw the smug satisfaction on alien faces. The Zarathi ambassador leaned back in his throne like he had already won. The Eternal Dominion's representative tapped his claws against his chair in a rhythm that sounded like drums before a battle. "No," Elena said. The simple word hit the hall like a bomb. Silence stretched for 5 long seconds. "Excuse me?" Threndal's diamond body flashed brighter. "I said no," Elena repeated. "The United Earth Federation refuses your proposal. We will not change our genetics to please you. We will not become different people because you fear who we are." The hall exploded into chaos. Alien voices rose in anger and shock. The Zarathi ambassador jumped to his feet, shouting something in his clicking language. Elena didn't need a translator to know he was calling humans names that would start wars. But Elena wasn't finished. "Furthermore," she said, raising her voice above the noise, "the United Earth Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." The chaos stopped like someone had turned off a switch. Every creature in the hall stared at the humans in complete shock. "Impossible," whispered the Trade Federation delegate. "No species has ever left the council. No species has ever been asked to cut out their hearts and replace them with machines either," Elena shot back. "But here we are." Threndal's diamond body flickered like a broken light. "You cannot simply leave. The council has existed for 12,000 years. We maintain peace across the galaxy. Without us, there is only chaos." "Maybe," Elena said. "Or maybe there are other ways to keep peace. Ways that don't require changing who we are to fit your idea of perfection." She turned to General Chen and Dr. Okonkwo. Both stood without hesitation. Elena felt proud of them. They could have stayed, could have tried to negotiate. Instead, they chose to stand with humanity. The Zarathi ambassador found his voice first. "You will come crawling back within a year," he snarled. "Your primitive species cannot survive without council protection. Without our trade routes, your colonies will starve. Without our technology, your ships will break down in space." Elena smiled for the first time that day. "Maybe you're right. Maybe we'll fail completely and disappear into history. But at least we'll fail as humans, not as whatever you wanted to turn us into." She started walking toward the exit. The hall stayed silent except for the sound of human footsteps on metal floors. "Wait," called the representative from the Harmony Spheres. Her voice was soft and musical like wind chimes. "There must be another way. The council can discuss modifications to the proposal." Elena stopped but didn't turn around. The problem isn't the proposal, Ambassador Lyra. The problem is that you think you have the right to make it at all. But the greater good, Lyra began. The greater good, Elena interrupted, should never require people to stop being themselves. When you ask someone to change their basic nature for peace, you're not creating harmony. You're creating slavery with better decorations. The Eternal Dominion representative stood up, his massive form casting shadows across nearby seats. Your species will regret this decision, human. The galaxy is dangerous for those without protection. Elena finally turned around. She looked at the alien who stood twice as tall as any human, whose species had conquered star systems before Earth discovered fire. You know what? She said. You might be right. The galaxy probably is dangerous. But you know what's more dangerous than facing the unknown? Becoming someone else to avoid it. General Chen stepped forward. The human fleet will escort all our civilians out of Council space within 6 months. After that, consider our borders closed to Council ships. Your borders? The Zarathi ambassador laughed, a sound like glass breaking. You have no borders. You have no fleet capable of enforcing borders. You have nothing. Dr. Okonkwo spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm and professional, like she was reading a research report. Actually, we have something you've never had. We have the freedom to become whatever we choose to be. That turns out to be worth quite a lot. Elena started walking again. This time she didn't stop. Behind her, alien voices rose in argument and confusion. Some demanded the humans be forced to stay. Others suggested military action. A few wise voices warned about the dangers of making enemies of humanity. Elena didn't care about any of it anymore. For the first time in years, she felt free. As they reached the exit, General Chen leaned over and whispered, "Think we just made the biggest mistake in human history?" Elena smiled. "Maybe, but it's our mistake to make." The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the hall, thousands of alien representatives tried to figure out what had just happened. None of them understood that they had just witnessed something new in galactic history. For 12,000 years, the Council had grown by absorption. Species either joined willingly or were conquered and forced to join. Never had anyone simply walked away. But humans, as they were about to prove, had a talent for doing things that had never been done before. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. And it all started with one word: no. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the council hall. Thrandal stood at his crystal podium and tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. The emergency session had been called because the council faced something they had never dealt with before. The humans weren't begging to come back. They weren't starving in space. They weren't crawling back with apologies and promises to behave. Instead, they were thriving. Trade Minister Veltar will present his report, Thrandal announced. His voice sounded tired even through the translation systems. Veltar floated to the speaking platform in his mobility chair. His gas-filled body glowed nervously as he began to speak. Honored council members, the situation with the human departure has created unexpected complications. That was putting it mildly, Thrandal thought. The last 3 months had been a disaster. Human ships are operating outside council regulations, Veltar continued. They're offering transportation at prices 60% below standard galactic rates. Worse, they've created what they call freedom routes that bypass all council checkpoints. The Zarathi ambassador's claws scraped against his throne. How is this possible? Human ships are primitive. Their technology is cobbled together from scraps. That's what we thought, Veltar admitted. But their primitive ships are fast, cheap to operate, and apparently very reliable. Independent traders are abandoning council-regulated routes to use human services. The hall filled with angry muttering in dozens of languages. This wasn't supposed to happen. When the humans left, they were supposed to collapse within weeks. Their economy should have crashed. Their colonies should have gone dark. Instead, they were stealing business from the council's most important trade routes. There's more, Veltar said, and his glow dimmed with worry. Humans have made contact with non-council species. The Void Wanderers, who haven't traded with anyone in 1,000 years, are now selling rare materials exclusively to human colonies. This time the muttering turned into shocked silence. The Void Wanderers were mysterious beings who lived in the empty spaces between star systems. They had technology the Council wanted, but could never obtain through normal diplomacy. The Outer Ring clans have also established trade agreements with humanity, Veltar continued. These militant species refused council membership for millennia. Now they're sharing military technology with humans. General Jexel pushed his way to the speaking platform. His six-legged body clicked against the metal floors as he moved. The military implications are severe, he announced. Human ship production has increased by 400%. They're building vessels using designs we've never seen before. Show us, demanded the Eternal Dominion representative. Holographic displays appeared above the assembly. The images showed human ships that looked nothing like traditional galactic designs. Instead of sleek curves and elegant lines, human vessels looked rough and angular. They were covered in armor plates and weapon mounts that seemed to have been added wherever they fit. They look like flying junkyards, laughed a Trade Federation delegate. Flying junkyards that consistently outperform our best designs in combat simulations, Jexel replied coldly. Human engineering follows no known principles. They build things that shouldn't work but somehow do. The laughter stopped. How many ships? Asked the Zorathi ambassador. Conservative estimates suggest they've built over 3,000 military vessels in the past 3 months, Jexel said. They're using modular construction techniques that allow rapid assembly. What takes us 2 years to build, they complete in 2 months. Threndal felt something he hadn't experienced in his 3,000 years of life. Fear. What about their allies? He asked. That's the real problem, Jexel admitted. Intelligence reports indicate 47 non-council species have joined what they call the Human Freedom Coalition. Some are species we've never heard of. Others are ones we considered too primitive or dangerous to contact. The collective mind's representatives all spoke at once, their voices creating a harmony of concern. How did humans locate these species? Our scout networks have explored the galaxy for millennia. Humans don't follow our exploration patterns, Jexel explained. They go to places we avoid. Dangerous regions, unstable star systems, areas marked as uninhabitable. They're making contact with species that live in conditions we consider impossible. Dr. Yenthara of the Science Consortium requested permission to speak. Her forearms gestured frantically as she delivered her report. Human scientific advancement has accelerated beyond all predictions. They've developed faster-than-light communication systems that don't require our relay networks. Their new FTL drives are smaller, cheaper, and faster than anything in our databases. Impossible, stated the Zorathi ambassador. They've only had FTL technology for 2 centuries. We've been perfecting it for 12,000 years. That's exactly the problem, Dr. Yenthara replied. They don't know it's impossible, so they do it anyway. The hall erupted in arguments. Some representatives demanded military action against the humans. Others suggested economic sanctions. A few wise voices warned that humanity might be more dangerous as enemies than as reluctant council members. Through it all, Threndal noticed something that chilled his crystalline core. The younger delegates from various species weren't arguing for action against humanity. They were quietly taking notes and asking questions about human trade opportunities. Ambassador Lyra of the Harmony Spheres floated gracefully to the speaking platform. Her musical voice cut through the chaos. Perhaps we should consider the possibility that we made an error. The hall went silent. The humans didn't ask for special treatment, she continued. They didn't demand more seats or better trade agreements. They simply refused to change their basic nature. When we insisted they become something else, they chose to leave rather than comply. They defied the council, snarled the Eternal Dominion representative. No species can be allowed to simply ignore our authority. What authority? Lyra asked gently. Authority comes from consent. The humans withdrew their consent. By what right do we force them to return? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. For 12,000 years, the Council's authority had never been questioned. Species joined because they had to, not because they wanted to. The strong ruled the weak, and the weak obeyed or faced conquest. But humans had created a third option. They had simply walked away and built something new. We could force them to return, suggested a Trade Federation delegate. Economic blockade, military pressure. With what? Asked Veltar bitterly. Half our trade routes are being undercut by human competition. Military contractors are buying human technology because it's better and cheaper than ours. Some of our own member species are secretly negotiating with the Human Freedom Coalition. That last statement hit like a meteor impact. Threndal's light flared with shock and anger. Which species? He demanded. I cannot say, Veltar replied. But the number is growing weekly. Threndal realized the truth that he had been trying to avoid for 3 months. The humans hadn't just left the council. They had broken something that couldn't be repaired. For 12 millennia, the council had maintained order through a simple principle. There was no alternative. Species could join willingly, be conquered, or be destroyed. Those were the only options. But humans had created a fourth option. They had proven that species could prosper outside the council system. They had shown that cooperation could work better than control, and once that truth was out in the galaxy, it couldn't be taken back. Emergency session concluded. Threndal announced wearily. All department heads will submit detailed reports on the human situation within 48 hours. As the delegates filed out, Threndal remained at his podium, staring at the empty human seats. Such small chairs for such a dangerous species. He had lived through 3,000 years of peace and prosperity. The council system had brought order to a chaotic galaxy. It had prevented wars, maintained trade, and allowed countless species to flourish under its protection. But in just 3 months, 3 little human chairs had become the most dangerous threat the council had ever faced. Not because they were filled with enemies, but because they were empty. 6 months after the humans left, Threndal received the news he had been dreading. The Kethmori Pax had formally announced their withdrawal from the Galactic Council. The fierce warrior species had sent a simple message. The Council shows weakness by allowing human defiance. We choose strength through human alliance. It was the first time in 8,000 years that a species had voluntarily left the Council. And just like the humans, the Kethmori weren't crawling back in defeat. They were joining something new. Threndal stood in his private chambers, looking out at the stars through walls of pure crystal. Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world, had been the center of galactic civilization for millennia. Now it felt like a museum of past glories. His communication device chimed with an urgent message. Another intelligence report about human activities. They arrived every day now, each one more troubling than the last. The report was from Agent Vextal, one of the Council's best spies. Her words made Threndal's crystalline structure dim with worry. The Human Freedom Coalition now includes 63 non-council species. The report began. They have established a capital on a space station called Liberty Point in neutral space. The station appears to have been built using combined technologies from dozens of different species. Threndal activated a holographic display. Images of Liberty Point appeared in his chamber. The space station was massive, easily the size of a small moon. But unlike council architecture, it had no unified design. Parts of it looked human, with angular metal sections and practical layouts. Other sections were clearly alien, with flowing organic curves and crystalline spires. It should have looked horrible, like a collection of spare parts bolted together. Instead, it looked alive, like it had grown naturally from the cooperation of many different minds. The station operates on what humans call horizontal democracy, the report continued. Every species, regardless of size or power, has equal representation. Decisions are made by consensus rather than by the authority of stronger members. Threndal tried to imagine such chaos. How could anything be decided when everyone had an equal voice? How could order be maintained without hierarchy? Yet somehow it was working. The coalition was making decisions faster than the council, implementing changes more efficiently, and growing stronger every day. The report continued with economic data that made Threndal's light flicker with anxiety. Human trade routes now carried 30% of all galactic commerce. Their technology was being adopted by hundreds of species, including some council members. Worse, the humans had done something the council thought impossible. They had made contact with the mysterious architects. The architects were ancient beings who lived beyond the galaxy's edge. They possessed technology that seemed like magic, but they had never responded to council diplomatic efforts. For 12,000 years, they had remained silent and isolated. Now they were trading with humans. Human Ambassador Elena Vasquez met with an architect delegation last week. The report stated, the details of their agreement are unknown, but architect ships have been seen in human space. This represents the first confirmed architect contact with galactic civilization in recorded history. Threndal's chamber door chimed. He minimized the holographic display and allowed his visitor to enter. Ambassador Lyra of the Harmony Spheres floated into the room, her musical voice carrying notes of concern. Threndal, We need to discuss the growing unrest among council members, she said without preamble. What unrest? Threndall asked, though he suspected he already knew. 17 species are openly questioning their council membership, Lyra replied. The younger generation of Zorathi are demanding their government negotiate with the human coalition. 3 collective mind subunits have declared independence and applied for coalition membership. Each word hit Threndall like a physical blow. The collective mind had been one of the council's most reliable members for 6,000 years. Their hive mind structure made rebellion theoretically impossible. How can subunits declare independence from a collective consciousness? He asked. The humans taught them something we never considered, Lyra explained. Individual thought within collective cooperation. The subunits maintain their connection to the greater mind, but they also develop individual perspectives. They call it unity through diversity, rather than unity through uniformity. The concept made Threndall's crystal structure ache. Everything humans touched seemed to change in ways that challenged basic assumptions about how civilization should work. There's something else, Lyra continued. I've been monitoring human communications. They're not trying to destroy the council. What do you mean? They're ignoring us, Lyra said simply. While we debate how to respond to them, they're building something new. They don't see us as enemies to be defeated. They see us as irrelevant to their future. The truth of that statement hit harder than any military threat. The humans weren't fighting the council. They were making the council obsolete. Threndall activated his communication system and called an emergency meeting of the council's inner leadership. Within hours, representatives from the most powerful species gathered in his chambers. The Zorathi Prime Minister looked older than his 800 years. His golden skin had lost its luster, and his normally perfect posture showed signs of strain. My people are in revolt, he admitted without being asked. Young Zorathi are abandoning our colonies to join human settlements. They say our rigid social structure stifles their potential. The Eternal Dominion's war leader nodded grimly. Our warrior castes respect strength above all else. They see humans defeating us without firing a shot and call it the greatest military victory in history. Even the Trade Federation was struggling. Their delegate, an insect-like creature with compound eyes that reflected multiple images, clicked in distress as he spoke. Human economic models are spreading throughout our territory, he said. They offer true free trade instead of our regulated markets. Profit margins are higher, but control is lower. Our traditional trade houses are losing influence to independent merchants who follow human practices. General Jexel delivered the most troubling news. Our peacekeeping fleet is experiencing massive desertion rates. Military personnel are abandoning their posts to join human security forces. They claim humans offer better equipment, higher pay, and more importantly, the chance to protect people instead of enforcing politics. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The council wasn't just losing member species. It was losing the loyalty of its own people. What do the humans want? Asked the Zorathi Prime Minister. Every species wants something. Territory, resources, power, revenge. What do humans desire? Lyra spoke softly, her musical voice carrying an odd note of wonder. Based on their actions, they want exactly what they claim to want. Freedom to choose their own path. Respect for their decisions. The right to cooperate with others on equal terms. Impossible, scoffed the war leader. No species is that simple. There must be hidden motives. That's what we keep telling ourselves, Lyra replied. But what if we're wrong? What if humans really are exactly what they appear to be? A species that values freedom over security, cooperation over control, and choice over certainty? The concept seemed to break something fundamental in the room. These were beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, through the understanding that all species wanted the same basic things: power, safety, and resources. But humans seemed to want something different. They wanted the right to make their own mistakes, face their own dangers, and build their own future, and they were willing to leave everything behind to get it. Recommendations? Threndall asked wearily. The silence stretched for long minutes before Lyra spoke again. We could try to understand them, she suggested. Instead of seeing human behavior as a threat to be contained, we could see it as an alternative to be studied. You suggest we learn from primitives who have barely left their home system? The war leader asked incredulously. I suggest we learn from people who have accomplished in 6 months what we haven't managed in 12,000 years, Lyra replied calmly. They've created a truly voluntary galactic government. They've established peaceful contact with species we considered impossible to reach. They've built technology that surpasses ours using principles we don't understand. She paused, her glowing form dimming slightly. Most importantly, they've inspired others to believe that there's a better way to live. When was the last time the Council inspired anyone? The question hung in the air like a dying star. None of them could answer it. Outside the crystal walls, the stars continued their eternal dance. But the galaxy they illuminated was changing in ways no one could predict, and at the center of that change was a species that had walked away from power rather than abuse it. The humans had shown the galaxy something new, not just a different way to rule, but a different reason to govern. Instead of ruling because they could, humans led because others chose to follow. It was a revolution that couldn't be stopped with fleets or contained with laws. It could only be joined or ignored. And ignoring it was becoming impossible. 1 year after humanity's departure, Threndal barely recognized the galaxy he had helped rule for 3 millennia. The emergency meetings had become so frequent, they were no longer called emergencies. They were just reality. 31 species had left the Council. Trade revenue had collapsed by 60%. The peacekeeping fleet was operating at quarter strength due to desertions. Some Council worlds were openly trading with the Human Freedom Coalition, while technically remaining Council members. But today's crisis meeting felt different. There was a desperation in the air that Threndal had never experienced before. The Eternal Dominion Supreme Commander stood at the center of the Great Hall. His massive form cast shadows across the nearly empty seats around him. Where once 800 species had gathered, now barely 200 remained. The time for discussion has ended, the commander announced. His voice boomed through the hall like thunder. The human disease spreads throughout our territory. Their poison of equality and freedom corrupts our subjects. This rebellion must be crushed before it destroys galactic civilization. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the remaining delegates. The moderate voices that had once counseled patience were gone, having left with their species or been voted out by hardliners. "What do you propose?" asked Threndal, though he feared the answer. "Military action," the commander stated bluntly. "A coordinated strike against human space. Destroy their fleet, occupy their worlds, and forcibly return their allies to Council authority." The Zorathi War Minister nodded enthusiastically. His empire had been hit harder than most by defections. "My fleets are ready. We have identified the human military installations and their key coalition partners." General Jexel approached the speaking platform, his 6 legs clicking against the metal floors. "Intelligence suggests the humans are preparing for exactly this scenario. They've been building what they call fortress worlds along the borders of former Council space." Holographic displays appeared above the assembly, showing star charts marked with human positions. The fortress worlds were exactly what their name suggested. Planets converted into massive military installations surrounded by defensive stations and minefields. "They expect us to attack," Jexel continued. "These positions are designed to channel our forces into kill zones where their unconventional tactics will be most effective." "Let them prepare," scoffed the commander. "Human military doctrine is barely 2 centuries old. We have fought wars for 12 millennia. Experience will triumph over innovation." But Ambassador Lyra stood up from her seat, her musical voice cutting through the war fever. "Has anyone considered that the humans might not be preparing to attack us? What if they're preparing to defend against us?" "There's no difference," the commander replied dismissively. "There's every difference," Lyra insisted. "An aggressive species builds weapons to take what others have. A defensive species builds weapons to protect what they've built. The galaxy sees that difference even if we don't." She activated her own holographic display, showing intercepted human communications. The words scrolled past in simple, clear language that contrasted sharply with the complex diplomatic speech used by Council species. "This is from General Chen to Coalition Defense Forces," Lyra read aloud. "We will not fire the first shot. We will not invade Council space. We will not attack civilian targets, but we will defend our friends, our freedom, and our right to exist. If they want a war, they'll have to start it themselves." The message hit the hall like cold water. Even the most aggressive delegates seemed to pause and consider the implications. "It's a trap," insisted the Zorathi War Minister. "They want us to attack first so they can claim self-defense. Or, suggested Lyra, they really mean exactly what they say. The debate raged for hours. Hardliners demanded immediate military action. A few remaining moderates urged caution. But everyone agreed on one thing: the current situation could not continue. As the arguments flew back and forth, Threndal found himself thinking about something that had been bothering him for months. Every intelligence report, every intercepted communication, every analysis of human behavior pointed to the same conclusion. Humans weren't trying to conquer the galaxy. They were trying to improve it. The realization was so simple and so obvious that he wondered why it had taken him so long to understand it. Humans saw problems with how galactic civilization worked, and instead of complaining or trying to take control, they had simply started building something better. They weren't revolutionaries trying to tear down the old system. They were engineers trying to build a new one. "I call for a vote," the commander announced. "All in favor of military action against the human rebellion?" Hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the hall. Threndal counted them with growing dread. Not quite enough for a majority, but close. All opposed? Fewer appendages rose. The moderates were outnumbered but not defeated. "The motion fails by 12 votes, Threndal announced. "Military action is not authorized at this time." The commander's massive form shook with rage. "Then the council chooses cowardice over strength. So be it. The Eternal Dominion will act alone if necessary." "You cannot," protested a Trade Federation delegate. "Military action without council approval violates our charter." "The charter assumes a functioning council," the commander replied coldly. "This assembly is a shadow of what it once was. We will do what must be done to preserve galactic order." He turned and marched out of the hall, followed by several other militant delegates. Threndal watched them go with a growing sense of doom. The vote had failed, but barely. Worse, the most aggressive council members were now talking about acting independently. War was coming whether the council authorized it or not. That evening, Threndal sat in his chambers reviewing intelligence reports when his communication system activated. The caller identification showed something that made his crystal structure flicker with surprise. Elena Vasquez, the former human ambassador, was requesting a private conversation. After a moment's hesitation, Threndal accepted the call. Elena's image appeared as a hologram in his chamber. She looked older than when she had walked out of the council hall a year ago, but her eyes held the same determination. "Speaker Threndal," she said formally. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Ambassador Vasquez," he replied, using her old title out of habit. "This is unexpected. How did you obtain this private communication frequency?" Elena smiled slightly. "The same way we obtained detailed intelligence about the Eternal Dominion's fleet movements and attack plans. Your security isn't as tight as you think it is." The casual admission sent chills through Threndal's consciousness. If humans could intercept private council communications, what else did they know? "Why are you contacting me?" he asked. "Because war is coming and I wanted to give you one last chance to prevent it," Elena replied. "The Coalition knows about the Eternal Dominion's planned attack. We know they're trying to rally other species for a military alliance against us. What do you want from me?" "Nothing," Elena said simply. "I'm not here to negotiate or make threats. I'm here to warn you about what's going to happen if your hardliners start this war." She activated her own holographic display, showing star charts that made Threndal's structure dim with shock. The Coalition controlled far more territory than Council intelligence had realized. Their fleet was 3 times larger than estimated. Most surprising of all, they had allies the Council didn't even know existed. "We're not the same species that left your Council a year ago," Elena continued. "We've grown, learned, and adapted. Most importantly, we've inspired others to believe that there's a better way to live than under the boot of ancient empires." The display showed communication intercepts from across the galaxy. Messages of support for the Coalition were pouring in from species the Council had never heard of, rebel groups within Council territory, and even some Council members who were secretly planning to switch sides. "If the Eternal Dominion attacks us," Elena said quietly, "they won't be fighting just humans. They'll be fighting every species in the galaxy that believes freedom is worth defending." "Are you threatening the Council?" Threndal asked. "No," Elena replied. "I'm trying to save it. Because once this war starts, there won't be a galaxy big enough for both our systems to survive." She paused, her expression growing sad. "I didn't want this, Threndal. None of us did. We just wanted the right to be ourselves. But if you force us to fight for that right, we will, and we'll win. The hologram flickered off, leaving Threndal alone with his thoughts and fears. Outside his crystal windows, the stars shone with the same eternal light they had displayed for billions of years. But tomorrow, some of those stars might be obscured by the flash of weapons fire and the debris of destroyed ships. War was coming to the galaxy, a war that would determine whether the future belonged to the ancient system of control through strength, or the new system of cooperation through choice. And despite having ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, Threndal wasn't sure which side would win. For the first time in his very long life, the crystal being who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations was afraid of what tomorrow might bring. The war that everyone expected never came. 2 weeks after the Eternal Dominion's fleet departed for human space, they returned without firing a single shot. Their massive warships limped back to Council territory like wounded animals, and their Supreme Commander's report shook the foundations of galactic civilization. "They were waiting for us," he admitted to the emergency council session. His voice, once full of confidence and strength, now carried notes of confusion and something that might have been respect. "Waiting how?" demanded Threndal. "Every species we have been fighting for 12,000 years was there," the commander replied. "The Void Wanderers emerged from hyperspace with ships we've never seen before. The Outer Ring clans formed a battle line that stretched across 3 star systems. Even the mysterious architects appeared with vessels that defied our understanding of physics. The holographic display showed the scene that had greeted the Dominion fleet. It wasn't just humans defending human space. It was over 200 species standing together in the largest military alliance in galactic history. But they didn't attack," the commander continued, and his confusion was obvious to everyone. "We faced overwhelming numbers, superior positioning, and technology we couldn't match. They could have destroyed us completely, so why didn't they?" asked the Zarathi war minister. The commander was quiet for a long moment before answering. "Because Elena Vasquez asked them not to." The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Ambassador Lyra floated forward, her musical voice rising above the chaos. "Explain," she demanded. "The human ambassador contacted our flagship directly," the commander said. "She asked to speak to me personally. When I accepted the communication, she made an offer." He paused, clearly struggling with what he had witnessed. "She offered to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the crisis, not surrender, not demands for our withdrawal. A genuine attempt to find a solution that would allow both systems to coexist." The hall fell silent. This was not how wars were supposed to work. "I refused, of course," the commander continued. "I demanded their immediate surrender and return to Council authority. I threatened to destroy their fleet and occupy their worlds." "What did she say?" Threndal asked. "She said she was sorry I felt that way, but it wouldn't change their offer. They would defend themselves if attacked, but they preferred to find a peaceful solution." The commander activated his own holographic display. It showed a recording of Elena Vasquez during their communication. She looked calm, professional, and genuinely sad about the situation. "Then she did something I've never seen in 12,000 years of warfare," the commander admitted. "She opened a channel to all the ships in both fleets. Human, Coalition, and Dominion vessels all received her transmission." The recording played Elena's voice across the council chamber. "To all the warriors gathered here today, you come from hundreds of different worlds, different species, different beliefs, but you all have something in common. You all love someone back home. You all have people counting on your return." Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed the weight of what she was carrying. "I'm asking all of you, on both sides of this conflict, to think about those people. Think about your families, your friends, your communities. Is this fight worth their pain? Is proving who's stronger worth the cost in lives that will never come home?" The hall was completely silent now. Even the most militant delegates listened to Elena's words with growing attention. The Human Freedom Coalition doesn't want to destroy the Galactic Council. We want to give people choices. If you prefer the council system, stay with it. If you want to try something new, join us. There's room in this galaxy for both ways of life. Elena paused in the recording, looking directly into the camera. But there's no room for the kind of war that would settle this dispute by force. Too many good people would die. Too many worlds would burn. Too many children would grow up without parents. She spread her hands in a gesture that somehow managed to be both pleading and dignified. "So I'm asking you to go home. All of you. Talk to your leaders, your families, your communities. Decide what kind of galaxy you want to live in. We'll be here when you're ready to build it together." The recording ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. "What happened next?" whispered Lyra. The commander's massive form seemed to shrink as he answered. Ships began leaving, not fleeing in panic but departing in good order. First one, then dozens, then entire squadrons. From both fleets. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who had spent their lives believing that strength came from the willingness to use force. By the time the withdrawal was complete, half my fleet had requested transfers to coalition service. They said they wanted to serve something they could believe in rather than something they feared. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. The Eternal Dominion's military, legendary for its discipline and loyalty, had been shattered not by enemy action, but by enemy compassion. "Where does this leave us?" asked Threndal. Before anyone could answer, the chamber's communication system activated. A message was being broadcast to the entire galaxy on all frequencies. Elena Vasquez appeared on every screen, addressing not just the Council but every inhabited world in known space. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, "recent events have brought us to a crossroads. The old ways of governing through fear and control are breaking down. The new ways of cooperation and choice are spreading across the stars." The image switched to show Liberty Point, the Coalition's capital station. It had grown since the last intelligence reports, becoming a massive city in space where dozens of species worked and lived together. "The Galactic Commonwealth is officially formed today," Elena announced. "Any species, any world, any group that wishes to join us in building a better future is welcome. We offer not rule but partnership, not orders but opportunities, not conformity, but respect for diversity." The announcement continued with details that made Threndal's crystal structure dim with the realization of how completely the galaxy had changed. The Commonwealth included over 300 species now. They had established trade networks that spanned the galaxy. Their technology was being freely shared with anyone who wanted it. Most shocking of all, they were offering full membership to any council species that wanted to switch sides. Not conquest, not absorption, but genuine choice. "The age of empire is ending," Elena concluded. "The age of cooperation is beginning. The choice of which future to embrace belongs to every sentient being in the galaxy." The broadcast ended, leaving the council chamber in chaos. Some delegates raged about human arrogance. Others quietly discussed the Commonwealth's offer. A few simply walked out, heading home to inform their governments that the galaxy had moved beyond the Council's ability to control. Over the following weeks, the exodus accelerated. The Harmony Spheres announced their departure, praising the Commonwealth's commitment to peaceful resolution of conflicts. The Science Consortium left en masse, excited by the Coalition's open sharing of research and technology. Even some of the most traditional species began to waver. The Ancient Crystalline Collective, one of the Council's founding members, sent envoys to Liberty Point to discuss potential future cooperation. Threndal found himself presiding over a dying institution. The Great Hall that had once held representatives from 800 species now rarely saw more than 50 delegates. The vast bureaucracy that had governed the galaxy for 12 millennia was dissolving as entire departments resigned to join the Commonwealth. 3 months after Elena's broadcast, she returned to Nexus Prime, not as a supplicant begging for readmission, but as the elected speaker of the Galactic Commonwealth, offering the Council one final choice. She stood in the same spot where she had announced humanity's departure 2 years earlier. But now she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives from over 400 species, including many that had once been Council members. "The Commonwealth offers full partnership to all remaining Council species," she announced. "Not absorption, not conquest, but genuine cooperation between equals." The offer was simple but revolutionary. The Commonwealth would dissolve itself and reform as a new organization that included both former Council and Coalition species. Every world would have equal representation. Every species would maintain its sovereignty. Decisions would be made by consensus, not by the dominance of ancient powers. "What about our authority?" demanded the Zarathi War Minister. "Our traditions? Our rightful place as the galaxy's leaders?" Elena looked at him with something that might have been pity. "You can keep your traditions. You can maintain your authority over your own people. But you can't force others to follow traditions they don't believe in or accept authority they don't consent to. She gestured to the diverse crowd behind her. These people chose to follow the Commonwealth because we offered them something the Council never did. Hope for a better future. The debate that followed lasted for days. Ancient powers raged about the destruction of galactic order. Younger species spoke of opportunities for growth and cooperation. Moderate voices suggested that the Commonwealth might represent evolution rather than revolution. In the end, the choice was made not by grand speeches or dramatic votes, but by simple mathematics.